King, Donald Campbell takes his jet hydroplane Bluebird for a spin on Lake Providence.
The Suez Canal, lifeline of Europe.
Every year I got a birthday card from this study. That was something my wee brother didn't get. And it made me think that there was somebody who was taking an interest in the kind of questions that I was answering.
I think it's contributed to understanding of how lives develop.
We were finding new things. We had facilities to do it, and we could draw on experts around the country and abroad, all working together for the common cause.
It's been one of the most influential pools of data that possibly the world has ever seen.
The National Child Development Study is a study that began in 1958. It's a nationally representative birth cohort study, and it's the second oldest of the birth cohort studies in the UK. People at that time were extremely concerned about the very high rates of infant mortality in this country, and it was decided to do a medical study of all babies born in a single week to understand what were the driving factors behind those very high rates of infant death.
The major advantage of the study was its size and its representativeness. The children were all born in 1 week across the UK, and the size, about 17,000, meant that there were some very interesting subgroups that you could study with sufficient numbers. So that was something that had been very difficult to do on a population-wide basis.
The key moment in the study came when it was decided to find all the children now that they'd started school when they were 7.
They were followed up through the school system, simply tracing all the children with birthdays in that 1 week.
These studies enable you to follow people's lives from birth right through, so you can confidently generalize about the population from that. This was one of its great strengths.
All the children took part in all kinds of cognitive tests to measure their ability in reading and maths, and parents started answering questions about other aspects of their lives like their employment and their own health. When the cohort members became adults, we started systematically asking many different questions of them than they'd ever answered before.
Nobody thought at that time that smoking in pregnancy would make a blind bit of difference to the child. That was a very, very important piece of information. As a result of the NCDS findings, public policy changed. There are far fewer women nowadays smoking in pregnancy, and that has to be good, not only for the women who were smoking anyway, but of their children, and possibly even their grandchildren.
It pointed to the problem of a rising literacy and numeracy difficulty that hadn't been spotted before. But also it began to identify the reasons for this, who it was who were failing to learn as children the rudiments of reading and particularly numeracy, where the problem arose and what could be done to solve it.
There was good information on social class. Without doing any sophisticated statistical analysis, a little booklet called Born to Fail was produced in the early 1970s. It just looked at the association between educational performance and also physical growth and social background. Things which I think now most people would take for granted. It was not taken for granted then. It made an enormous difference. It brought to people's attention what was going on in society.
What it's done is elevated social mobility to be a cause. It's focused policymakers on the truth, which is that where you start in life and where you get to in life, that there is a correlation between these two things.
The cohort members gave blood and DNA was extracted just at a time when scientists were learning about genetic risks for all kinds of health outcomes. It's enabled us to see how your health in middle age and the health risks that you have are patterned by your social class and your social origins from childhood, as well as your circumstances at the time of the survey.
You can think of a whole range of sometimes not entirely obvious public policy interventions that really have been massively informed by the evidence base that the NCDS has been able to throw off.
It enabled us to understand the importance of childhood as a key developmental phase for mental health, and also the links that childhood mental health have for one's mental health and well-being across the whole of life.
My research is focused on trying to understand mental health development through the life course and understanding the antecedents of mental health development and the consequences. We know that socioeconomic disadvantage is a large risk factor for mental ill health, but what the longitudinal data allows us to do is to look at how socioeconomic and other disadvantage can accumulate through the life course and how this might impact their mental health in people's 50s and 60s.
For me, the 1958 study is extremely powerful on its own. It's even more powerful when we combine it with the other nationally representative studies, so the 1946 cohort, the 1970 cohort and the 2001 cohort. Over time, these studies have had a huge impact on what we know. A lot of my research really focuses on cross-cohort obesity, about growth and development, about disease development. It's important that we know what causes obesity so that we can go to policymakers and say, here's the evidence, do something.
We're tremendously excited to think about the next study sweep. We'll be collecting measures about their physical health as well as their mental health and their cognition. And what was really striking on the age 55 study sweep was the huge inequalities that we saw in preparedness for older age and potential vulnerability in old age. And that's something that I want to explore much more deeply in the future.
60 is relatively young nowadays. We want to know what it is that influences the way in which adults develop.
But the beauty of the longitudinal studies is the longer they carry on, the more valuable they get. So in the next few decades, I anticipate that many more really important research questions can be answered.
And that's why it'll be enormously valuable for studying the ageing population that is in that cohort.
NCDS has illuminated so many different areas of science, and taken together, it's given us an incredibly rigorous and evidence-based approach to understanding what shapes people's lives and what policies we need to make people's lives better.
We have so much accumulated data from birth. The 1958 study will give us invaluable information about the ageing process.
It is giving something that is absolutely unique, from which policymakers can take, the media can take, society can take, to fashion responses that are capable of addressing the very real issues that that data throws up. I've got no doubt that for decades to come, it will be a foundation for evolving public policy. It is vital, in my view, that the NCDS continues.
Oh, it's been so brilliant to be part of that family, the study family, the 1958 March cohort family. I'm so excited about the next stage. I love being 60 now.